Hello students, this is Shushmita, Biology faculty from VENPER Academy. So hope you have done your exams well. Today we will be discussing the answers for the biology questions, and the code which I have here is M5. Okay, so we will discuss the answers. So first question, mutation in plant cells can be induced by, the answer is gamma rays. We know mutation is sudden change in the DNA and that can be brought in the plant cells by using gamma rays. Okay, and next question 1 or 2. You must match the list 1 with list 2 and you must select the correct answer. Okay, so the capacity to, the cells with the active cells, the division capacity would be meristematic cells, right? So for A it must be 2. So obviously with this you can answer. We will see the other answers also. The tissue having all the cells similar in structure and function, right? So it is simple tissues, and tissues which has different types of cells is vascular tissues. We know xylem and phloem, they have different types of cells there. So C is 1, and for D, dead cells with highly thickened walls and narrow lumen is sclerites. So option 1 would be the answer. And for 1 or 3, it's a very easy question. They're asking you the correct sequence of PCR. Okay, so first comes denaturation where the hydrogen bond breaks, and annealing where the primer attaches, and extension where the tag polymerase will add nucleotides complementary to the existing DNA strand. So for 1 or 3, the answer is 1. And for 1 or 4, you must match again list 1 with list 2 and you must give the correct answer, and the option is 2. So if you take lenticels, it is necessary for the exchange of gases when you take in terms of bark. Okay, so in the bark you will have a small opening through which exchange of gases will take place. And cork cambium, the other name for cork cambium is phellogen, and for secondary cortex it is phelloderm, and for cork it is suberin deposition, right? So option would be 2. Okay, so next question 105. They're asking you to complete the flow chart on the central dogma of life. Okay, so we know DNA, again we are getting DNA, so the option A would obviously be DNA replication. Okay, and from DNA we get mRNA by means of transcription, so B is transcription, and mRNA we get something, obviously it must be protein, so D is protein, and C by a process called as translation. So option 3 is the correct answer. For 106, they are asking you the term used for the transfer of pollen grains from anthers of one plant to the stigma of a different plant. So this different terms comes to this question, right? So obviously it has to be xenogamy, okay, during pollination, which brings genetically different types of pollen grains to the stigma. So obviously it is xenogamy, right? 107, the DNA strands on the gel stained with the Ethereum bromide when viewed under UV radiation will appear as, okay, it will appear as bright orange bands. Okay, so the answer is 2. For 108, they are asking you the incorrect statement. Okay, so see the first option, the mature seed tube elements will possess a conspicuous nucleus and usual cytoplasmic organelles. No, mature seed tube elements will not possess any nucleus, right? So this option is incorrect, whereas all others are correct. See, microbodies is present in both plant cell and animal cell, and perinuclear space, it is a barrier between the nucleus and the cytoplasm. This is also right, and the nuclear pore will act as a passage for protein and RNA molecules in both the direction between the nucleus and cytoplasm. We know nucleus is a double membrane structure and you have a nuclear pore through which the substances can pass in and out. So all these 3 options are correct, whereas the first one is wrong because the mature seed tube elements will not possess nucleus. Okay, for 109, in spite of interspecific competition in nature, which mechanism the competing species might have evolved for their survival? So if there are different species, they will have interspecific competition for a food resource. Okay, so in spite of this, if the species can somehow overcome this kind of competition, what would they bring about? Okay, so they can bring about resource partitioning, which was told by Mark Arthur. Okay, so with the example of warblers, he would have told, even if 5 different species of warblers are present in the tree, they will compete for the resources, but still they will change their foraging time according to their different types of species, right? So this is resource partitioning. Okay, so that is the answer. And 110, gemma, we know gemma is an asexual, multicellular asexual bud. You can see in Marchantia, and Marchantia is an example of liverworts. So the answer is liverwort. Okay, 111, you must match the list 1 with 2 and answer the correct option. So protoplasmic fusion, we know the protoplast of the potato and tomato together will get pomato, right? So with this only you can give the answer as option 2, but you'll see the other options too. Tissue culture, right? So plant tissue culture means totipotency. Totipotency is even if you have a single plant cell, from that single plant cell you can get the entire plant, right? So for B it is 2. And meristematic culture, generally we do meristematic tissue culture in order to get virus free plants, because meristematic cells are actively dividing cells, so virus cannot infect such kind of actively dividing cells. And for D, micropropagation, the answer is homoclones, so the answer is 2. Okay, for 112 they have asked the production of gametes by parents, the formation of zygotes, F1, F2, everything can be understood from a diagram. And what is the diagram? It's a very easy question, right? So the answer is Punnett square. Okay, for 113, genera like Selaginella and Salvinia will produce two kinds of spores. Okay, so we know Selaginella and Salvinia are examples of pteridophytes, and if pteridophytes produce two types of or two kinds of spores, we call them as heterosporous. Okay, so generally it is different, right? So heterosporous. Okay, next question 114. The amount of nutrients such as carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium present in the soil at a given time is referred to as standing state. Okay, so they are all direct questions, right? Okay, so amensalism can be represented as, okay, as we all know, in amensalism, one organism is affected whereas the other organism is neither affected nor benefited. Okay, so the best example is antibiotics. Okay, so they are asking you which species A, if it is affected, the other one will not be affected or not benefited also. So they are representing with 0. Okay, so for 115 the answer is 1. Okay, so next question 116. Again you must match the following and choose the correct answer. We know cohesion is the mutual attraction between or among the water molecules, whereas adduction is attraction towards the polar surface, which means attraction between the water molecules and the tertiary elements where it passes through. And surface tension is more attraction in the liquid phase, right? Guttation, we know it is water loss in the form of liquid phase, right? So the answer would be option 1. And 117, which is not an application of PCR. We know PCR is involved in molecular diagnosis to amplify a particular gene to detect any gene mutation, but it is not involved in purification of any protein. Okay, so the option 3 won't come. Okay, so 118, during the purification process for recombinant DNA technology, the addition of chilled ethanol precipitates out. Okay, last year it was asked other way around, this time they have asked just opposite, right? So the answer is DNA. Okay, so after you isolate the DNA will be precipitated out by mixing them with chilled ethanol, right? So the answer is 2. Okay, in this equation GPP minus R equal to NPP, the R will represent what? Okay, so GPP stands for gross primary productivity, whereas R stands for respiration equal to net primary productivity. So what does that mean? The producers, which is the plants, will produce food. Okay, the total amount of food produced by the entire plant in the atmosphere, biosphere, we call them as GPP, gross primary productivity. These plants will take some amount of food for their own use, that is respiration. So subtracting the respiration, we get the remaining amount, right? So that is called as net primary productivity. So here the R stands for respiration loss. Okay, right. The first stable product of carbon dioxide fixation in sorghum is, we know sorghum is a C4 plant, and the first stable product they have asked. So it is a C4 compound, which is nothing but oxaloacetic acid. Since the first product is a C4 compound, okay, so we call the cycle as a C4 cycle, right? Okay, so which of the following algae produces carrageen? We know carrageen. Okay, so it is an important product when it comes to hydrocolloids, right? So carrageen and algene, these two examples they would have given because they have water holding capacity. And red algae is the answer, right? So a red algae will produce carrageen. Okay, right. So the next question, okay, which of the following statement is not correct? 122, right? We know pyramid of biomass is generally inverted, and the next question is they have told it is upright. Obviously it is not upright. So for example, if I take biomass, we will take example of phytoplanktons and zooplankton. Okay, so the phytoplanktons are less in amount when it comes to biomass, then the zooplankton. So this is phytoplanktons and zooplanktons, right? So these are phytoplanktons are producers, zooplanktons are consumers. So you're getting an inverted shape pyramid, but not an upright shape. So the answer is this. They are asking which is not correct. Okay, and we know, see the third option, the pyramid of energy is always upright. This is always right. And the pyramid of numbers in the grassland ecosystem is upright. This is also right. Okay, right. So 123, again match list 1 with list 2 and you must choose the correct answer. Okay, so cristae, we know it is the infoldings in mitochondria. The inner membrane infolding is called as cristae. Whereas thylakoids, we know they are the flattened membranous sacs in the stroma of plastids, which is chloroplast. Centromere, we know it is the primary constriction in chromosomes, and cisternae is a disc shaped sacs in the Golgi apparatus. So option 3. Okay, and 124, they are asking which of the following are not the secondary metabolites. We know morphine, codeine, vinblastine, curcumin, rubber, gums, all these are secondary metabolites, whereas amino acid and glucose are not secondary metabolites, they are all primary metabolites, which means they are directly involved in the metabolism in our body. Okay, so these two are primary metabolites, right. So 125, they are asking you which of the following algae contains mannitol as a reserve food material. Okay, so since they have asked mannitol, the answer would be a brown algae. So if you check the option, Ectocarpus is a brown algae, whereas Gracilaria is a red algae, whereas these two are green algae. Okay, so the answer is Ectocarpus. Okay, and 126, a typical angiosperm embryo sac at the maturity would be 7-celled and 8 nuclei structure, right? So the option 1 would be right, 7-celled and 8 nuclei. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. Okay, so diadelphous stamen are found in pea plant, diadelphous, right? Okay, so all other options won't be correct. Cynorrhous is given, citrus is given, obviously they are not correct. So the answer is P. Okay, 128, when gene targeting involving gene amplification is attempted in an individual tissue to treat a disease. Okay, you are using a gene to treat a gene related disease, okay, involving gene amplification and all. What is that called as? Okay, so obviously it is called as gene therapy. Okay, so molecular diagnosis is you are trying to diagnose the disease. Okay, if you are treating it, it is gene therapy. Okay, 129, which of the following stages involves the division of centromere? Okay, so centromere division is, we know the chromatids are joined together with the help of this primary constriction called as centromere. This centromere will split always in the anaphase only. So obviously you have only one option here. So the answer is anaphase 2. Okay, right. So 130, the plants will follow different pathways in response to environment or phases of life to form different kind of structures, right? So this ability of the plants is called as plasticity. Okay, so based on the environment, their morphological characters would change. Okay, 131, they are asking you which of them are monoecious. We know papaya, marchantia, cycas are all dioecious, whereas chara is a monoecious plant. Okay, fine. 132, when the centromere is situated in the middle of the two equal arms. Okay, so with this only you can answer. So if the chromosome is like this and the centromere is present giving rise to two equal arms, okay, so such kind of chromosome would be referred to as metacentric, right? Okay, and next question, 133, the site of perception of light in plants during photoperiodism. Okay, so that is leaf. Okay, so whenever sunlight falls on the leaf only, this leaf will act as a perception and it will involve the photoperiodism, whether it is short day plants or long day plants, the light is absorbed first by the leaf only, right? Okay, so 134, the factor that leads to founder's effect in a population is genetic drift. As we all know, genetic drift will take place in a very small population. Okay, so whenever this drift occurs and a new set of species is involved, the original individuals would be called as the founders, right? So this is called as founder effect. Okay, 135, the plant hormone which is used to destroy weeds, right? So obviously it must be an auxin and the answer here it is 24D. So next we will move on to section B. Okay, so they have asked to match column 1 with 2. Okay, so nitrococcus, we know to convert ammonia to nitrate we need nitrococcus, and Rhizobium to convert the atmospheric nitrogen to ammonia, Thiobacillus denitrification, and Nitrobacter to convert to convert nitrite to nitrate. So option 1, right? Okay. So 137, they have asked us to select the correct pair, right? So large colorless empty cells in the epidermis of the grass leaf is not subsidiary cells, they are called as bulliform cells. Okay, so this is not the correct answer. In dicot leaves, the vascular bundles are surrounded by large thick walled cells called as bundle sheath cells, okay, and not conjunctive tissue. The cells of medullary rays that form a part of cambial ring is called as interfascicular cambium. This is right. Okay, so fourth option, the loose parenchyma cells rupturing the epidermis forming a lens shaped opening in the bark is not spongy parenchyma, they are called as lenticels. Okay, so the answer is option 3. Okay, so 138, they have asked us to mention the correct option, right? So fusion of two cells is not called as karyogamy, fusion of two nucleus only is called as karyogamy. Fusion of protoplasm between two motile or non-motile gametes is called as plasmogamy, right? So fusion of protoplasm is plasmogamy, nucleus is karyogamy, right? So this is correct, but we'll see the next option too. The organisms that will depend on living plants are not called as saprophytes. Okay, on dead plants only we call them as saprophytes. And some of the organisms can fix atmospheric nitrogen, okay, in a specialized cells called sheath cells. Okay, it is not sheath cells. Okay, so the option 2 would be the right answer. Maybe here you can tell in terms of cyanobacteria we can call them as heterocyst. Example, nostoc. Okay. 139, identify the correct statement. Okay, so first option, in capping, the methyl guanosine triphosphate is added to the 3' end of hnRNA. Wrong, it is 5' end, right? Okay, so option 2, the RNA polymerase binds with the Rho factor to terminate the process of transcription bacteria. Yes, it is right. Okay, so initiation is by sigma and termination is by Rho. This is right. So coding strand in the transcription unit is copied to an mRNA. Yes, it is copied, but still there is a change, right? So the sequence, you shouldn't just write the T exactly as T. Instead, you must convert them into U when it comes to mRNA. That is not mentioned, so it is wrong. So split gene arrangement is characteristic of prokaryotes. No, it is wrong. It is a characteristic of eukaryotes. What is this split gene arrangement? We have introns and exons, okay, interconnected like this, right? So this split gene arrangement can be seen like this intron exon arrangement can be seen only in eukaryotes and not in prokaryotes. Okay, so the correct answer is 2. 140, in the exponential growth equation, they are asking you in this equation what does this E represent. Okay, so the E will represent the base of natural algorithm. Okay, the answer would be somewhat around 2.178, something like that, right? So option 3 is right. Okay, so 141, they are asking you the incorrect statement, right? During aerobic respiration, the role of oxygen is remitted to the terminal stage, right? Okay, so this oxygen will come only at the end, it will act as the final electron acceptor. This is right. But check the second option, in electron transport chain, one molecule of NADH plus H plus will give rise to 2 ATP molecules and one FADH2 will give rise to 3 ATP molecules. They have just changed it. One NADH2 will give rise to 3 ATP and one FADH2 will give rise to 2 ATP. Okay, so this option is found to be incorrect. Okay, so third one, see, ATP synthesized through complex 4, it is right. And oxidation reduction reaction will produce proton gradient. Obviously, because of this proton gradient only, there was this ATP formation, right? Okay, so option 2 is the incorrect option. Okay, so 142, it's an easy question, right? The role of RNA polymerase 3 in the process of transcription in eukaryotes, the RNA polymerase 3 will transcribe tRNA, 5S rRNA and snRNA. Okay, so 1 will be transcribe rRNA, 2 will transcribe mRNA and hnRNA, and 3 will transcribe all these 3, tRNA, 5S rRNA and SN, small nuclear RNA. Okay. We'll move to the 143rd question. In some members of which of the following pairs of families, the pollen grains retain their viability for months. They will retain their viability for months even after their release. Okay. So if you check in the books, we'll have all these rice and wheat and all. They will lose their viability within few minutes of release. Whereas if we take Rosaceae, Leguminaceae and all, and also Solanaceae, okay, so even after the release, their viability will stay up to few months also. So option 4. In all these 3 options, we have Poaceae. So rice will come under Poaceae. Obviously, these 3 won't be the answers. Okay, right. So 144. Okay, again you need to match list 1 and 2. We know S phase, it is DNA replication. Very easy, right? So S phase DNA replication. So A is 4. And G2, proteins are synthesized. What kind of proteins? The proteins necessary for the mitosis or meiosis to take place. Those proteins will be synthesized in G2. And quiescent stage is an inactive phase. And G1 phase is interval between mitosis and initiation of DNA replication. And before G1, there would be an end of mitosis. After G1 comes S phase. So obviously D must be 3. So option 3 would be right. Okay. Look at the next question. Nowadays, it is possible to detect the mutated gene using causing cancer by allowing the radioactive probe to hybridize its complementary DNA in a clone of cells, followed by its detection using autoradiography. Because, okay, so we know this radioactive probe, if any gene is mutated in our body, that will not be shown in the photographic film. Why? Because we don't have that complementary probe in which they have already created. So, see the option 3, the mutated gene will not appear on the photographic film because this probe has no complementary with it. Okay, so obviously this won't be the, this would be the answer for this question. Okay, right. So 146, the plasmid PBR322 has PSD1 restriction enzyme site within the gene ampicillin resistance that confers ampicillin resistance. If this enzyme is used for inserting a gene for beta-galactoside production and the recombinant plasmid is inserted in an E. coli strain, what would happen? So the question is, so we know PBR322 is an artificial plasmid in which we have ampicillin resistance and tetracycline resistant genes in it. Together with that we have the ORI and ROP genes too. So they have already told in the question only that ampicillin resistant has this PSD1 restriction enzyme site. Somewhere here you have PSD1 restriction enzyme site. The question is, if they are inserting a gene for beta-galactoside, if they are inserting a gene here, what happens is the ampicillin resistant gene will get inactivated. This process is called as insertional inactivation. Since this ampicillin resistant gene is inactivated, even if this plasmid is now transformed into an E. coli, this E. coli will now lose the resistance to ampicillin because this has been inactivated due to introduction of this beta-galactoside. So look at the first option, it will not be able to confer ampicillin resistance to the host cell because that has been inactivated. Okay, so question number 147, you need to match column 1 with column 2. Okay, so they have given the floral formula and the family which they belong to. So we know if P comes, P stands for Pyrian, so obviously it must be Liliaceae. So C must be 2, right? So obviously you can answer, right? So A would be Fabaceae, B would be Solanaceae and D is Brassicaceae. Okay, right. So 148, which of the following statement is incorrect? Both ATP and NADPH2 are synthesized during non-cyclic photophosphorylation. Yes, obviously non-cyclic photophosphorylation, both photosystem 2 and 1 would be involved and also both ATP and NADPH2 would be formed. This is right. Stromolamellae will have PS1 only and it will lack this NADP reductase. Yes, it is right. Grana lamellae will have both PS1 and PS2. Grana, right? So obviously it will have both so that it will undergo non-cyclic photophosphorylation. But look at the last option. In cyclic photophosphorylation, it will involve both PS1 and PS2. It is wrong, right? So cyclic photophosphorylation will involve only PS1. So for 148, the answer is 4. Okay, so look at 149. So match list 1 and 2. Okay, so they're asking you what kind of bond is present in a protein. We know it is peptide bond. Unsaturated fatty acid, it is carbon-carbon double bonds. Okay. So since it is unsaturated fatty acids, and nucleic acid, we know phosphodiester bond, and polysaccharide, it is glycosidic bond. Okay, so option 1. 150, DNA fingerprinting will involve the identifying the differences in some specific regions in DNA, which is called as repetitive DNA. This fingerprinting principle is only because of repetitive sequence in our genome, right? So answer is repetitive DNA. Okay, so next we will move on to the section A of zoology. Okay. So 151, which of the following statement is wrongly representing the nature of smooth muscles? We know smooth muscles will not have any striations, that is right, and they are all involuntary muscles, which means we are not voluntarily doing that work, and communication between the cells is performed by intercalated disc. It is wrong. Okay, so this intercalated disc you can see in cardiac muscle, not in smooth muscle, right? So these muscles are present in the wall of blood vessels, it is right. So they are asking you which is wrongly given. So option 3. And 152, it's a very easy question. They're asking you which of the organelles are involved in endomembrane system. We know it is endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi, lysosomes and vacuoles. Okay, right. So next question, 153. With regard to insulin, choose the correct option. Okay, so this is little tricky question. We see. So C peptide is not present in the mature insulin. Okay, so C peptide will not be present in mature insulin. They are asking you which is correct. So this is correct, right? Okay. The insulin produced by the rDNA technology has C peptide. No. Okay. So the insulin produced by rDNA technology, they didn't involve C only. They just took A peptide and B peptide. Okay. Proinsulin has C peptide. This is right. Okay. The A peptide and B peptide are joined together or interconnected by disulfide bridge. Yes, this is right. So A, C and D would be right. B is not correct because in rDNA technology they will directly take A peptide and B peptide and then they will just connect both by means of disulfide bond. Okay, right. So 154, venereal diseases can be spread through. Remember, venereal diseases means sexually transmitted disease. Okay, so the answer would be B and C. Okay, so sexually transmitted disease can be transmitted from one person to other by means of transfusion of blood from if there is any infected person and also from infected mother to fetus. So option B and C. So 155, they are asking you to select the favorable condition required for formation of oxyhemoglobin, which is association of oxygen and hemoglobin. So obviously if oxygen and hemoglobin has to associate, the oxygen must be more in amount, right? So high partial pressure of oxygen, low partial pressure of carbon dioxide. And with that you must have less hydrogen and less temperature also. So the option 1 is right. Okay, right. 156, match the following. So just their scientific names, right? So Physalia, the answer is Portuguese man of war. Limulus is a living fossil, right? Ancylostoma, hookworm. Pinctada, pearl oyster. Okay, so option 3. Next question. Okay, in a cross between a male and a female, both heterozygous for a sickle cell anemia gene, what would be the percentage of the progeny which would be deceased? So always remember, they have just to confuse, they have given you male and female, right? And it is a sickle cell anemia. We know sickle cell anemia is an autosomal recessive disease, which means if a particular person is in this state, small a only, they would be affected. But they have told they are heterozygous. Okay, heterozygous in the sense both male and female would have been in this condition. Okay, so this is how we call them as heterozygous. And they are asking you if they are heterozygous, what percentage of progeny would have been deceased. Okay, so we will take this, let me show you in another page. Okay, so both man and the women is heterozygous, right? So capital A small a and capital A small a. So if I write in the Punnett square, okay, I will get capital A, capital small a, capital small a and small a, right? Remember, if the genotype is small a, they are affected. Okay, capital A, small a, they are heterozygous condition. You can keep them as carriers. Okay, and capital A, they are normal person. So the question is, they are asking you the percentage affected. So totally if I take this full box as 100%, each box will contribute 25%, right? So 25, each would be 25. So they are asking you this affected alone. So the answer would be 25. Okay, right. So 158, they are asking you again match list 1 and 2. So it's an easy question, right? So Aspergillus niger is responsible for producing citric acid, and with that name only you can answer. Acetic is there, so acetic acid, butylicum, butyric acid, lactobacillus, lactic acid. Okay, so the answer is 1. So 159, sphincter of Oddi is present at. Okay, it is present between the hepatopancreatic duct. This duct is being joined by the liver and pancreas, and also into the opening of duodenum. Between these two, you have the sphincter of Oddi. Okay. So 160, they are asking you which is not an objective of biofortification. Biofortification means enrichment in the existing crop varieties. Enrichment of what? Protein, vitamin, micro and macronutrients and mineral content, but not resistant to diseases. So this is not an objective of the biofortification, right? Okay, for 161, the erythropoietin hormone which stimulates the RBC production is produced by, so this erythropoietin is produced by the JG cells of kidney, which is juxtaglomerular cells of kidney. Okay, right. So look at the 162nd question. They are asking you which of the following organism will bear hollow and pneumatic long bones. So obviously it must be aves. Okay, so aves only will have hollow and pneumatic long bones. Aves also you can call them as birds, right? Okay, so look at the option. We have neophron, which is nothing but vulture. Okay, Hemidactylus is wall lizard. Okay, so Macropus is kangaroo. Ornithorhynchus is platypus. So just look at the option. So vulture is an A, so this is the right answer. Wall lizard is a reptile. Macropus and Ornithorhynchus are mammals. So answer is 1. Okay, right. Okay, so 163, centriole duplication occurs during. Okay, so centriole duplication and DNA replication both takes place at S phase. Okay, next question. Dobson unit are used to measure the thickness of ozone. Ozone thickness is measured with the help of Dobson unit, dB, right? Okay, which of the following belongs to the family Muscidae? Okay, housefly, right? Okay, read the following statement and they are asking you to choose the correct answer. Okay, so metagenesis is not observed in helminthes. Metagenesis is observed in coelentrates, right? And echinoderms are triploblastic and coelomate animals. This is right. Okay, and roundworms have organ system level of body organization, annelids, right? So this is also right. Comb plates are present in ctenophores, which helps in digestion. No, it helps in locomotion. So this won't be the right answer. And water vascular system is an characteristic of echinoderms. This is right. So B, C and E are correct option, right? Okay, 167. For effective treatment of the disease, early diagnosis and understanding its pathophysiology is very important. So which of the following molecular diagnostic technique is very useful for early detection? Whenever this term comes, remember PCR and ELISA for early detection. So PCR is not given in the option. So ELISA is the answer. Okay, so receptors for sperm binding in mammals are present on. Okay, so this is a kind of tricky question. We know we'll have secondary oocyte. Okay, so this secondary oocyte is covered with the non-cellular layer called as zona pellucida. This zona pellucida will have receptors and the sperm will bind with the receptors present in the zona pellucida. Okay, only then the acrosin will digest the zona pellucida. Now the sperm nucleus and the secondary oocyte, which means the secondary oocyte will be now converted into their oocyte by completing their meiosis 2. So these two will fuse, giving rise to zygote. So the answer is zona pellucida. Okay, right. So chronic autoimmune disorder affecting the neuromuscular junction leading to fatigue, weakening and paralysis of skeletal muscle is called as. Okay, so it is affecting the neuromuscular junction. Okay, so it's an autoimmune disease, which means our own immunity is thinking that our own body cells are for something from foreign agents, right? So the answer would be myasthenia gravis. Okay, so 170, which of the following is an example of hormone releasing IUD? Okay, so it is LNG20, also progestastate is also another example. CUT, CU7, multiload 375, all these are copper releasing IUD. Again, another question related to the same thing. Okay, so we'll answer this also. This is very easy, right? So vasectomy and tubectomy. Obviously, vasectomy means removal of vas deferens, tubectomy is removal of fallopian tube. And we know walls, it's just a barrier method. So it will entry of sperm through the cervix is blocked, whereas IUD will undergo the phagocytosis of sperm within the uterus. So answer is option 2. Okay. For 172, again match the following: metamerism, canal system, comb plates and nidoblast. Okay, so we know metamerism in annelids, canal system in porifera, comb plates, right, ctenophora for locomotion, nidoblast, coelenterata. So option 3. Okay, right. Okay, so look at this question. The fruit fly has 8 chromosomes in each cells. Okay, so they have given 2n. Just a second. Okay, 2n is equal to 8. And they have told that during interphase of mitosis, if the number of chromosome at G1 phase is 8, obviously in the G1 phase, if it is 8 chromosomes, what would be the number of chromosome during S phase? They are asking you what happens in S phase, what would be the number of chromosome. Always remember, in S phase, DNA replication and central duplication only will take place. There is no change in their chromosome number. So obviously it would still be 8 only. So answer is 8. Okay, right. So 174, during the process of gene amplification using PCR, if very high temperature is not maintained in the beginning, then which of the following step of the PCR will be affected first? Okay, we know in PCR the steps follows denaturation followed by annealing, finally extension. Okay, so always you must also remember, this hydrogen bond between the two strands of DNA will break only whenever there is a high temperature. Whenever this high temperature is not maintained, which would be affected first? The first step only would have been affected, that is denaturation. Denaturation is nothing but removal of hydrogen bond. Okay, so option 3. Okay, 175. If adenine makes 30% of DNA molecule, what would be the percentage of thymine, guanine and cytosine in it? Easy question, right? So always adenine will be equal to thymine, guanine, cytosine, right? Remember this. So they have told adenine comprises of 30%. If adenine is 30%, obviously thymine will also be 30%. So adenine 30 plus thymine 30, totally it would have been 60%. So out of 100, if I subtract 60, I would get 40. If I divide this 40 into 2, I will get 20. So guanine would be 20 and cytosine would have been 20. I hope you are getting this question. So if adenine is 30, obviously thymine would have been 30. So 30 plus 30 would have been 60. So out of 100, since they are telling in terms of percentage, out of 100, just subtract 60, you will get 40. Divide this 40 into 2, since we have guanine and cytosine, so 20 each. So option 3. Okay. So 176, the enzyme responsible for converting the inactive fibrinogen and fibrin, which is responsible for this clot, is thrombin. Right. So obviously other option might not come, right? Okay. So 177, succus entericus is referred to as intestinal juice. The intestinal juice is also called as succus entericus. Okay, and the next question, you must identify the incorrect pair. Codeine is an alkaloid, abrin is a toxin, concanavalin is a lectin, and ricin is not a drug. Ricin is also a toxin, right? So this is the incorrect pair. Okay, 179, which stage of meiotic prophase shows terminalization of chiasmata as a distinctive feature? So chiasmata is that X-shaped structure which is formed as the result of recombination. Okay, and this X-shaped chiasmata would terminalize, will end up at the process of diakinesis. Okay, so terminalization of chiasmata is a feature of which stage? It is diakinesis. Right. So 180, a person with AB blood group are called as universal recipients. Always remember, if a blood group is AB, that particular person will have both A and B antigens in their RBC. But the question is, why they are called as universal recipients? They have A and B antigen, but they don't have antibodies. Just because they don't have antibodies, they can receive blood from any other blood group. Okay, so the absence of antibodies, which is anti-A and anti-B in the plasma. Okay, so this is the answer. Okay, so 181, a specific recognition sequence identified by the endonuclease to make cuts at specific position within the DNA. You have a DNA sequences and a recognition sequence would have been there where the restriction endonuclease will make a cut. What is that sequence called as? It is called as, recognition sequence. They are all palindromic nucleotide sequence. For example, GAA TTC, right? So their other strand would be CTTAAG. So why they are called as palindromic sequence? On either side they are read in the Same way, GAATTC, GAATTC, right? Okay, so they are called as palindromic nucleotide sequence. Okay, right. So 182, which of the following characteristic is incorrect with respect to cockroach? Okay, so they're asking you which is incorrect. We know hypopharynx is a kind of tongue with respect to the mouth parts of cockroach. In females, and the 7th to 9th sternum, they together called as genital pouch. That's right. 10th abdominal segment in both sexes will possess a pair of anal cerci. This is also right. But look at the first option, a ring of gastric CK, hepatic CK or gastric CK, both means the same, is present at the junction of midgut and hindgut. No, it is present at the junction of foregut and midgut. Okay, so this option is wrong. 183, which of the following RNAs is not required for the synthesis of protein? We know mRNA is required, tRNA, rRNA, all these three are required. But siRNA, small interfering RNA, has nothing to do with protein synthesis. So this is the right option. Okay, which is the only enzyme that has the capability to catalyze initiation, elongation, termination in the process of transcription? So obviously transcription means production of RNAs, right? So if RNA is produced, what enzyme would have been involved? RNA polymerase. So it is depending on DNA. It is taking DNA as a template and it is producing RNA. So the enzyme is DNA dependent RNA polymerase. Okay. Next, it's a simple question. They are asking you the partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide in alveoli. So oxygen, it is 104 and carbon dioxide is 40. Right. Okay. So section B, zoology. So 186, which of the following is not a step in MOET? MOET stands for multiple ovulation embryo transfer technology. So all other options are right, but look at the first option. The cow is administered with a hormone having LH like activities for superovulation. Okay, so LH is not required. FSH is required to induce more follicles, right? Okay, so the cow will yield 6 to 8 eggs at a time, it is right. The cow is fertilized by artificial insemination is right. So the fertilized egg are transferred to the surrogate mother at the 8 to 32 cell stage. This is also right. So option 1 is not a step. Okay, 187. Which of the following will secrete the hormone relaxin during the later phase of pregnancy? So relaxin in your books would have been given as ovary. So the corpus luteum present in the ovary is responsible for producing relaxin, which is involved during parturition or childbirth. Okay, 188. During muscle contraction, which of the following events will occur? Okay, so always remember, whenever muscle contracts, the A band will remain the same. The width or length of the A band will never change. A band remains the same. Whereas the head zone will disappear. This is right. I band will reduce in width, right? In myosin only we have this ATP binding site. Okay, and also the activity takes place where the ADP and phosphate would have been released. And the Z line, okay, the sarcomere Z line would have been attached to the, which is attached to the actins, will be pulled inwards. This is also right. So except B, all others are right. So A, C, D, E. Okay, right. So look at the next question, 189. Which of the following statement with reference to lipids is correct? Okay, so lipids which has only single bond, they are not called as unsaturated fatty acids, they are called as saturated fatty acids. Lecithin is a phospholipid is right. Trihydroxyprofane is glycerol. Yes, so the formula of glycerol is CH2OH, CHOH, CH2OH. So 1, 2, 3, right? So trihydroxyglycerol. Okay. So trihydroxyprofane is a glycerol, right? Oh, so this is right. And palmitic acid is a 20 carbon compound. No, it is a 16 carbon compound. Whereas arachidonic acid is a 20 carbon compound, right? So these two are just interchange. So which is correct? B and C is correct. Okay, right. So 190. Which of the following statement about histone is wrong? We know histone is made up of 8 molecules, right? So octamers, we call them as histone octamers. And histones are rich in amino acids like lysine and arginine. Lysine and arginine are basic amino acids. Okay, and histone will carry positive charge in the side chain. So obviously if they basic amino acid, they will carry positive charge. But look at the second option, the pH of the histone will be slightly acidic. Okay, so if it's a basic amino acid, obviously it should have been alkaline pH and not acidic, right? So option 3 is wrong. Okay, 191, match the following. So adaptive radiation, the option would be Darwin's finches. Convergent means obviously it has to be analogous organs, right? So it is wings of butterfly and birds. Divergent evolution, it must be homologous organs. So option 2 must have been correct. Bones of forelimbs in man and whale. And evolution by anthropogenic action, which is man actions. Okay, so selection of resistant variety due to excessive use of herbicides and pesticides, man-made actions, right? So option 1. Okay, 192, identify the types of cell junction that helps to stop the leakage of substances. Another one is to facilitate the communication between the neighboring cells by transferring ions and molecules. For the first one, it must be leakage of substances can be prevented by tight junction, and also the facilitation or the communication between the neighboring cells to transfer ions and molecules can be with the help of gap junction between the cells. So option 2. Okay, so for 193, which of the following statement about prostomium of earthworm is correct? Okay, it serves as a covering for mouth, it is right. It helps to open cracks in the soil so that it can crawl, this is right. And it is one of the sensory structure, yes, it is right. And it is not the first body segment, the first body segment is peristomium. Okay, so they are asking you which is the correct option. So A, B and C. Okay, next question. 194, adenosine deaminase deficiency. If this adenosine deaminase gene is not present in a particular body, their immune system would have been affected. This will lead to dysfunction of immune system. You would have learned this in the gene therapy section. Okay, right. So 195, they have given you two statements. They are asking you to answer the correct option. Okay, AUG will code for methionine and phenylalanine. This is wrong because AUG will code for methionine but not phenylalanine. Look at the second option, triple A, AAA and AAG will code for the amino acid lysine. This is right. Okay, so statement 1 is incorrect, but the statement 2 is true. So option 4. And again, assertion and reason question has been asked. Look at 196. A person, when he goes to high altitude, he will experience altitude sickness, and the symptoms would be breathing difficulty and heart palpitations. This is assertion, and the reason is why this happens is because of low atmospheric pressure at high altitude. That particular person will not get a sufficient oxygen. So reason is also right, and the reason is the correct explanation for this assertion. So both A and R are right, and R is the correct explanation for A. Okay, right. So 197, we know Allen's rule in the colder climatic conditions, or the animals present in the colder climatic regions will have short limbs and ears to prevent the heat loss, right? So since colder condition I have told, you can see polar seal is there, right? So A4, okay. And physiological adaptation, kangaroo rat, where they will use very less amount of water, and also they will oxidize fat, and the water as their byproduct is used by them. So behavioral adaptation is desert lizard, which will according to the sunlight presence or not, it will either bury into the soil or bask in the sun. And biochemical adaptation, we know marine fish at depth regions. Okay, so those fishes, inside them they will have some proteins which will prevent them from getting freezing, like anti-freezing protein would have been there in their body. So option 3. Okay, right. So 198, you must match the diseases and their causative agent. Filariasis is caused by Wuchereria bancrofti, amoebiasis by Entamoeba histolytica, pneumonia is caused by influenza, and ringworm is caused by Trichophyton. So option is 2. Okay, which of these is not an important component of initiation of parturition in humans? 199. So parturition is childbirth. Obviously there will be an increase in estrogen and progesterone ratio. Prostaglandins would have been produced, oxytocin also would have been released, but there's nothing to do with prolactin and parturition. Prolactin is involved in milk secretion formation, but not during parturition, right? Okay, so 200. Again they have asked you to match list 1 and 2 and give the correct answer. Okay, so this time you can see a flat bone is given, triangular flat bone. Okay, so scapula is a triangular flat bone, you can see with the picture only. And cranium, we know the bones present in our brain will have fibrous joint, immovable joint. And sternum is a flat bone, and vertebral column, between two bones in the vertebral column you will have cartilaginous joint. So accordingly the answer would be option 4. Okay, so hope you have done the exam well. You can check the answers again. If there is any doubt, you can ask in the comment section. Thank you.